this is Sailing as You Trim again. It's been a while since we're talking to you guys, approximately 2 years. But as you may know, we've been very occupied with Trim's extensive DIY refit, that the results you can see right here. Stay tuned, 3-part documentary series is going to be published by the end of this year. But for now we would like to present to you the last video about our voyage on Trim.
Before we ended up in a US boatyard, we sailed about 9,000 miles from Turkey to Virginia. If you haven't seen our previous videos that had details of our adventures through the Mediterranean, Africa and the Atlantic Ocean, you can check them out in the link below. But today we just wanted to share some stories about our time in the Caribbean, coming up to the US, where we are now.
After crossing the Atlantic Ocean on this very boat and not seeing any land for 2 weeks straight, we reached the most eastern island of the Caribbean, called Guadeloupe.
It was a little bit of a struggle keeping the mast up and the water out, but we did it, and when we got to Guadeloupe we were ecstatic to be in the Caribbean. Cleaned up after the crossing, fair bit of water inside, trimmed the leaky decks, beds are stripped, every single bit of clothing and sheets all in the laundry bags.
We spent an entire month on the island. We were accompanied by Alex's friend and exquisite chef, Phil. We got to go on some amazing hikes, see waterfalls. We even went to a hot spring.
Yeah, we found a hot spring.
We even found a hot spring. Because Guadeloupe is a French island, we got to have amazing food.
Cheers guys! Makes for an amazing landfall to come from eating the absolute most basic of our stores that we had left on the last day, to fresh French butter, croissants, amazing European bread.
Yes.
It was a very nice landfall.
We even got to do some diving on the west coast of the Guadeloupe island.
Yeah, we even got to give Jacques Cousteau an underwater hug.
Oh yeah, we visited the underwater sculpture of Jacques Cousteau. I think the great dive, all three of us, was fun. Guadeloupe was great, and I think if we were to come back to any of the Caribbean islands, Guadeloupe would be definitely on the list.
So after about 5 months of being aboard, Phil decided to go chase some waves in Nicaragua. That meant Agatha and I had the boat to ourselves, and we were on our way to Antigua.
Although we had a beautiful 1-month stay in Guadeloupe, our schedule was quite tight. The boat had some issues, some technical issues.
Agatha just said technical issues, but it's probably a bit of an understatement because Trim was completely falling apart. So it was pretty damn important that we got to the US to do our refit before the start of hurricane season, because Trim's mast was about to fall down.
The next island on our route was Antigua. We spent only a couple of days there, maybe like 3-4 days. We rented a car to go around the island and see some of its beautiful bays and beautiful turquoise water. Yeah,
after a short stay in Antigua, we had a bit of a longer sail to the British Virgin Islands, and we had a beautiful sail, but when we reached the BVI, we really noticed the scale of the destruction from the 2 hurricanes, Maria and Irma, that were only less than a year before we arrived. We were a little taken aback, and people were definitely still rebuilding and struggling. So the BVI was a bit of a stay with mixed feelings for us.
You could see boats upside down, boats ashore, bollards that were completely destroyed.
Catamarans completely upside down, up a hill.
Although Trim was in a pretty poor technical state, we were feeling very thankful and lucky to be there under sail and enjoying the trip. There are still some beautiful anchorages and beautiful bays where we were staying. Although, in one of the anchorages, after a short trip to town and a little grocery shopping, we came back in Trim. I had a little shower. Trim didn't have any shower back then, so I was just having a bird bath in the cockpit. All of a sudden, I saw a big, inflatable rib approaching with police logo on it. I wasn't sure back then. I was just knocking on the door for Alex to let me in because I just needed a towel at least. All of a sudden they came aboard Trim, set us apart. One guy took Alex inside, one guy was keeping me outside.
It was pretty dramatic really. These police, they boarded the boat and we had no idea why. I think they'd been watching too many American movies because they decided that it would be the right thing to do to pull out their gun and point it into the boat as if we had a whole boat full of armed militia or something. And so they very dramatically go through the boat like, clear, clear, clear. You know, and we're like, what the hell is going on? So eventually they started interrogating me, and they were obviously looking for drugs or something like that.
It wasn't it.
It was the wrong boat.
Yeah.
So they left us alone.
As Alex was inside with the other policemen searching the boat, I was kept outside in the cockpit, and one of the police officers explained to me that they got a tip from someone and they are on the lookout for a boat with a blue hull above trim size. Once they realized that this is not the boat they're looking for, they just left us alone.
Pretty intimidating. They had like big automatic weapons and bulletproof vests and the whole SWAT team gear. It was pretty scary.
After that, we decided to leave British Virgin Islands, but before that, we went to a tiny anchorage in front of a tiny little island called Ginger Island. We had a nice little freediving session. Alex caught a lobster, and then we decided to have barbecue on that tiny island with no one else around, and it was really, really nice.
Going on a barbecue mission.
We have a fresh lobster.
Made me like the BVI a lot more.
Yeah. After BVI, we had to jump north and north and north. So the next stop was US Virgin Islands, where we stopped only for one night. In order to do that, we had to go on a commercial vessel, like a ferry, enter US without passports, come back on the ferry, get trim, and then come back on trim.
Yeah. What are we doing?
We're going to the US Virgin Islands.
Why?
Because it's USA and we need to do bureaucracy. There's room!
It was just to beat some bureaucracy so that we could enter the US on our ESTA instead of having our B1, B2 visas.
After a short but eventful stay in the British Virgin Islands, we made headway towards Puerto Rico, where we were planning to meet Alex's brother Levi.
My brother Levi flew over to the boat, and we had big plans that we were going to sail around Puerto Rico, and then we were going to sail onto the Bahamas together, probably spend at least a month on the boat all together, the three of us. Fate had other ideas.
Yeah.
We had a couple of good sailing days, maybe like 4 or 5 really nice days anchoring around the southern side of Puerto Rico. Still a bit of the US kind of vibe, but pretty much a unique place as well.
The southern coast of Puerto Rico was full of mangrove bays and not much urbanization happening, just tiny little villages, horses and manatees.
Our main goal was to get to some nice clear water, which wasn't really able to find in Puerto Rico on the southern side. So we were pretty eager to sail onwards to the Bahamas. So we went to an official port of entry in a large town of Mayaguez, western side, in a pretty large bay that is protected from the prevailing winds. We were basically ready to leave the next day. We anchored trim in this large bay. We went ashore just to pick up a couple of provisions, do the last of the official paperwork. We were in an Uber on our way to the supermarket when, to my absolute shock and horror, we see Trim on the beach being washed ashore by a late afternoon squall. This completely unknown anchorage to us was definitely a big mistake. It was very, very silty. We dragged all of our chain. We had heaps and heaps of chain out, but we dragged it all up onto the beach.
The dinghy was tied somewhere else. Trim was on the beach, we're in a taxi. We had to run out of the taxi, of course. Alex and Levi hopped aboard Trim and just climbed over, just like that. They were trying to motor it out while the propeller was still in the water. They quickly realized that's not really possible and they need at least a dinghy to help to move the boat. So Levi he took the taxi.
Yeah.
He took the taxi to dinghy, came back on a dinghy in a choppy weather.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Alex was still on Trim. I was on the beach. I was calling the Coast Guard, and they said that someone's gonna come and help. So eventually a boat came with very powerful outboards, but they wouldn't do anything.
They just said, oh, if you want to abandon the boat and we can take you, to shore, then that's what they would do. But of course we weren't doing that.
I was on the phone to Coast Guard office in Puerto Rico. Unless their life is endangered, they can't touch the boat, but we can hire a private towing company and someone could come and help us. So they gave me a bunch of numbers. While still on the beach, I was just calling those random numbers in my absolutely awful Spanish and trying to organize, a towing date. It took an entire day since midday to midnight to actually take trim in the water. But thankfully we got a number to a really good company. They came with a big powerful boat. They took one of the halyards from the top of Trim's mast to the boat. The goal was to tilt the entire boat so we could dig it out of the sand and with this sheer power drag it out of there. It was quite stressful because we didn't know what might happen if this mast will snap. After some trial and error, they did it. They took Trim out and we anchored for the night. Turns out we're not the only ones. Turns out it happens approximately at least once a week. If you're going to Puerto Rico, don't anchor in Mayaguez, please.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
So after that whole predicament, it was probably a little more than Levi imagined his idyllic sailing holiday to be. So he decided that he would go backpacking in Colombia instead, and I think it was like a day after that incident that Levi packed his bags and left, and I don't blame him at all. Hopefully in the future we get to do some more sailing with Levi that's a little bit more chill.
Thank you guys for watching.
This was part 1 of our Caribbean adventure. In the next episode, dolphins, sharks, unexpected weather changes, our best boat swim to date, Gulfstream sailing, all your preparations, and more.
If you would like to see the videos about the refit, please subscribe down below. Have a great day and see you soon.